Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 34. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. Again, I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, commented, continues to rate the show and listen. Your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. I also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus is trusted by the top strength sport athletes and lifters in the world. Cerberus's wide range of products are made by athletes for athletes, truly living up to its moniker, made by the strong for the strong. From sandbags, training gear, and supplements to lifting straps, knee sleeves, and more, Cerberus Strength provides the highest quality strength conditioning products on the market, designed and manufactured to help you defeat, destroy, and devour your competition. So if you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to check out CerberusStrength.com and use our promo code strength_game to save on your next order. And in this episode, I am joined by Coach Lucas White. White is the Assistant Director of Sports Performance for football at Boise State University. Prior to his current position, White has served as an Assistant Athletic Performance Coach at San Jose State University, a Graduate Assistant at Indiana State University, and as well as a Coaching Assistant at New Mexico State University. He began his career as the head strength conditioning coach at his alma mater, FJ Reitz High School in Evansville, Indiana, before jumping to the collegiate setting and interning at Mississippi State. White himself is a prime example of someone who practices what they preach and is heavily involved in training and competing in both geared and raw powerlifting, and has been a part of other powerlifting teams such as Thirst Gym and Boss Barbell Club. I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Lucas White. What's going on, everybody? I'm excited today. I'm joined by a Mountain West foe that kind of took a few trips in the league a little bit, now residing over in the blue territory, so kind of my sworn enemy. But Lucas White, how's it going, man?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to finally catch up with you. I know last time we really got to speak, you were with a different team, hanging out with San Jose State. So big move up into the mountains. So congrats, by the way, on that.
Yeah, thank you. It's been good, man. I had a good 2 years at San Jose State, and so when the opportunity to join Boise State came around, and link back up with some guys that I'm really close with, I couldn't pass it up, and it's a great opportunity. So definitely happy to be there. It's everyone talks about how big of a family the Boise State community is, and getting a chance to actually get in there and see it firsthand. It's for real, man. It's a big family. Everyone takes care of each other, and it's been an excellent move for me so far. So I'm really happy to be there.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it'll be good for you guys to get a full off season and then get ready for the fall, and then have Fresno and Boise lock horns.
Absolutely.
Hey, so let's get right into it. I want to kind of get into your series of the strength game. Like, what did you play growing up? What eventually got you to the point of being a competitive powerlifter?
Oh man, so I played just about every single sport under the sun. I mean, football, baseball, played soccer when I was real little, did track in high school, and that was about it. Didn't really do too much of basketball. Wasn't too good. And, I like to get out and play a little golf from time to time, but no, man, biggest thing when I was in high school, really football and track, really seemed to stick. Those are the two sports I enjoyed the most. Obviously, you're a high school football player, really a high school athlete in general. You're going to be down in the weight room. You're going to be lifting and throwing weight around. But, as far as the sports I played, that was it. Just about normal, from as far as what everyone, usually plays when they're growing up. You get exposed to a lot of different sports. But really what kind of got me into training too was I was in middle school. I mean, a lot of my friends wrestled. And I remember looking at a couple of these guys walking around, and they were all jacked up, had some muscle. I was like, man, that looks pretty cool. And so I was talking to a couple of them and asking, hey, what do you guys do? You just go wrestle or you run? They're like, no, man, we lift weights with our dads in the garage. And I was like, oh, lifting weights. I think I've got a little bitty weight, a little weight set down in the basement. It was probably like, maybe like 95, 100 pounds and like a 10-pound barbell. And we had the old, cement weights that were kind of wrapped in like the plastic coating that about fell off every single time you pulled them off the ground. But, we had a little, universal little spot with a pull down and a row and a, leg extension and a leg curl. And it was just something that I could mess around. And, I'm in middle school, throw a little music on and, go down to the basement and then toil away. I had no clue what I was doing, but I thought it was really fun. And, some of my friends that I played ball with were pretty yoked. And I was like, okay, I think I can get there too. And that was whenever I really first started, lifting and kind of got bit by the bug like we all have at some point. And just said, okay, this is something that I'm going to, I enjoyed it. And I said, I'm going to keep this up when I'm in high school. And lo and behold, all those years later, I've been able to shape my life around, my pursuit of strength and my passion for it. So that's what kind of got me into it. And it's what, led me into coaching.
That's a cool deal. Yeah. It's kind of, I always like hearing people's story, like how it actually really got it initially started. Cause we a lot of times like college or professional level, whatever you're doing for coaching, you kind of hear what really got you into coaching, but to kind of take steps back to see what really got you initially involved in training is really cool. Yeah. I know now you're doing a lot of competitive like powerlifting, you're training, like, are you doing geared and raw stuff or what do you kind of like tailing your training towards?
I'm just training right now, man. I think with the last, the last couple of years it's been kind of a, kind of going down a rabbit hole for lack of a better term with, with some of the conjugate stuff I've been messing around with and kind of that's where my bias towards training has shifted. Because as far as, for powerlifting and strength sports, do I feel there's a lot of value in it? Absolutely. But I think there's even more value when you look at, that what that system can do, for a field sport athlete. So, but as far as my own venture, man, I'm just training to train right now. Is trying to stay strong and keep those skills relevant, keep them fresh. But as far as that, I mean, it's kind of funny. We stumbled upon gear and I've only squatted in briefs. I haven't actually put a full suit on or used a bench shirt or anything, but as far as that, man, I was in grad school. I was training at Thirst gym in Terre Haute, Indiana. And we got done with a meet and it was January of 2019. We just got done with a meet and it was a raw meet and did pretty well. And a couple of my training partners asked me, hey, have you ever tried gear before? And I'm like, nope, sure haven't. And they're like, well, you want to give it a shot? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, what the heck, can't hurt. And I had one of my training partners who walked around at about 265, 270, and he had an old pair of briefs that were rather worn, really broken in. And yeah, man, he was like, yeah, just give these a shot and put them on. And I think I took, we were on a camber bar that night. We were getting thrown around like crazy with it. And I think I took 655 and that was the most I'd had on my back in a long time. So, I was kind of like, all right, this could be pretty fun. And so I kind of, dove down the rabbit hole of using some gear in training. And, I kind of set a goal of, I think I can, in training, I think I can squat 700 in briefs and wraps. And, I've, been able to do that a couple times. And, but yeah, it's just one of those deals, man. To me, it's fun. It offers a whole other level of training that a lot of people haven't experienced. And I think it's, if you have a chance to get in some of that equipment, I think it'll lend a much different perspective, than one that a lot of people have. I know it certainly changed mine, how to squat, how to pull, as far as, using different bars, how heavy I could load those bars because I had the gear on and it kind of gave me an idea. Here's where I'm really good at. Here's where I'm not so good at. And here's where I can start filling in the gaps, to increase, whether it be like, a buffalo bar squat, a safety squat, if it's, a cambered bar, or, if you're feeling real froggy on a certain day and you want to jump on a spider bar and get tossed around with that thing, they're fun tools and they can expose a lot and they can really help you direct your training. So that's really what, kind of got me going in gear and why I like training gear. But as far as now, man, I'm just training to train. I'm having a good time with it. I'm having a really good time sharing strength with the guys I work with.
I love it. I like what you said, like talking about exposing and like directing your training. Yeah. I think it definitely helps a lot too, like the conjugate style, because there's so many tools, you don't get really stagnant. And I think that's a lot of reasons people get out of powerlifting, just because the mindset is just doing the same three things over and over again and people get bored, or maybe it's a competition format and everything. That's that's the main kind of drawback I hear from everybody that actually gets
Yeah.
onto the competitive side, unless you're really good at it. But it's really cool to, like, I know you've talked about it before, like actually going off site and training
Yeah.
at different gyms and everything. Have you found one in Boise? And then can you kind of speak on like the importance of actually finding like a community and like camaraderie at a gym, like a barbell club or something that's actually outside of a collegiate weight room, since that's where you work?
Man, I think you said the magic word, community. I think that's something that I miss, from my time in Terre Haute when I was training at Thirst, and then my time in San Jose when I was training at Boss Barbell. And it's funny because I was the only person in that gym over at Boss Barbell that did any kind of conjugate stuff, and I was the only one that would train in briefs, and it's kind of like, well, he does some different stuff, but it's funny that you talk about other lifters that you say get into the competitive side of things, and they kind of get like, and you do the same thing over and over and over again. It's at some point the barbell can be very unforgiving, but even then, I had a chance to train around. I mean, my goodness, you would have at any given night, you could walk in, there would be 4 to 5 world record holders, whether past or current. And I mean, these are the people that are at the top level of their game. And even when I was at Thirst, I mean, the owner, Brandon Smidley, I mean, the guy squatted 567 at 132 pounds body weight. I mean, that's insane. And that was a world record for a while too. So having a chance to be around people that have been at the pinnacle of strength sports, and again, as a strength conditioning coach, you start to, like I said, success leaves clues. And if you look for it, you'll start finding those clues, and you can start to find, some answers once you dive down deep enough into it. But, I remember watching Dan Green and Andrew Herbert. I remember watching those guys training. Christy Hawkins. I mean, shoot, man, Christy came in, squatted 660, I think, in training one night with wraps on. It's like, this is insane. I can't squat that raw. I got to put my briefs on to hit that, but it was interesting watching them train, because the barbell was their main mode, of training. But watching how Dan and Herbie trained, and everyone else in there, it was they would go low bar, high bar, they would go front, they would throw the safety bar in. So even if you only have 1 or 2 bars, you can still do a conjugate style rotation or type of system within your training. So it's everyone thinks you have to have all these different bars and these different implements. Not necessarily. I mean, if you've got a bar and you've got you got a bar, so you got some chains, you've got something to make a box out of. I mean, you can make all sorts of different combinations and variations of the squat or the press, the pull, whatever. But man, I tell you, I think that's one thing I miss the most. Kind of just bouncing around and having a chance to go off site, and how important that really is. Because when you go around, and I talked about this on the Strength Coach Collective when I talked with Samson and did that, and I talked with Matt Tometz, and we got on this topic, and I think for us, it's real easy to get caught up in, okay, we're training with other strength coaches, right? And you're able, as you go along in this field and in your career, you're able to take certain things or different things from different coaches, different people. But how often do you get a chance to pick the brain of one of the strongest humans in the world? And I had a chance to do that at 2 different places. And so for me, that gave me a really just an entirely different perspective on what strength really is. And in the last couple of years, it seems like our field has started to stray away from, how important a robust base of strength really is. And because a lot of times we're going to be coaching kids that are going to be in a strength and power based sport. And, it's like, I get the power aspect, the speed aspect, that has to be there. I'm not saying it's not important, but I think we're starting to get away from how important a like I said, a robust base level of strength can really be and what it can do for the kids. So for me, it was really cool to kind of check that out and see that displayed at an extremely high level. And just really at the end of the day too, I mean, I was the only college strength coach that was up in those places. You got other people that are holding down these jobs, and we had at Boss, dude, we had a lot of people that were working at like, Facebook and Google and Apple and Twitter, and all these different startups, and it's kind of, you guys, like, this is just a hobby. And lo and behold, those people could move some weight. And even the guys that didn't compete, I mean, the community that we had in there, and like kind of like the evening crew that would be in there to train, it was so fun. I mean, you'd walk in and you'd have just music cranked up. It was a little grimy, but there was good equipment, good people, and a good atmosphere. And so I think that, and Thirst was the same way. I mean, we would get done at, shoot, man, I had track, till probably 6:45, 7 o'clock. And, I'd roll in 7:10, 7:15 over to Thirst, and the crew's there ready to go. And I had a class with a lot of those guys, and they stayed open until like 9:30, 10 o'clock. If that was the case, we were still training. But It was a really fun opportunity to get out of the weight room that I spent all day in and make some friends and build some relationships outside of the collegiate strength and conditioning setting. And I think what that did, not only professionally but also personally, that was a chance for me to really to make some friendships. And that I've still keep in touch with those guys. As of today, I think you go in and you share strength with people. That's a bond that's going to connect you for a long, long time. Because we can all relate to the barbell at some point in some way. And so I think as a strength coach, that's going to add a lot of value professionally, but it's also going to add more value, in my opinion, personally, because it gets you out, it gets you in the community, and it gives you a chance to share strength with other people.
No, that's awesome. That I couldn't have said it better myself. You touched on a lot of points there. I mean, those are great things for anybody kind of in the profession for the first time, like very young in it or older in it. There's a point in time you can get out of the weight room and go somewhere else,
Sure.
even if it's a different weight room, and basically recharge yourself and be in a different atmosphere, kind of immerse yourself in that community. Like, yeah, professionally, that's awesome because you're learning from some people that are the best at moving barbells.
Yeah.
And you can take a ton of that back, because now you're not the smartest person in the room. You're probably not the strongest person in the room anymore.
No way.
Those are great things though that you can kind of put into your wheelhouse now. But personally, that's awesome. That takes you away from it. Because I mean, all the places that I've been at, yeah, I like to train in the weight room, and like everybody's like, oh, well, the college weight room, like you have access to it all the time. I was like, yeah, I have access to it all the time, but my office is there, and that's where I also do work, and that's where people come talk to me, and that's where people hang out and all spend all this extra time. So it's good for athletes to see you train. It's good for coaches to come in and see you train, but at the same time, I want to put an emphasis into my training so that I can use it kind of as a template for my athletes. And if I don't get to like be very meticulous with it and train the certain same manner I'm going to give them the program, then I'm not really sure if it works. Or if I'm not putting the same effort into it and trying to like suffer in a certain way, and because I'm always being constantly interrupted, it's a little bit different. It's a breath of fresh air to get out of there and train somewhere different, for sure.
For sure.
That's a great point. I like what you touched about the gear too. I was on this topic the other day with a few of like our interns and coaching assistants. Starting to get like more and more nervous about the way they train, because they want to make sure if the coach comes in and sees them training, they don't want the coaches to think that that's how they're going to train their athletes. That by what you do is a direct reflection of how you coach. Have you run into any of those issues? Like, I know football is a little bit different because the weight room mentality is there, but maybe in like some of your Olympic side, like coaches, has there been a sort of drawback at all from your very heavy conjugate style, like very heavy max effort, dynamic effort work that might kind of throw some shade on a women's soccer coach or something like that?
Not necessarily. I mean, is there going to be a little bit of a, are you sure? A little bit of a question, sure. And I think that's normal across the board, whether it's football, it's women's soccer, it's track, or you're just, you're on an interview and you're trying to get a spot, and the director's asking you, hey, what's your training philosophy, or where do your biases lie? And so I kind of figure out I want to articulate this. I haven't had any pushback or any kind of like, anyone really being like, no, this is not it. Because I've taken the time to kind of explain like, hey, here's where my head is at. Here's why I think this is going to be effective. Here's the means of getting this done. And so I think when you sit down and you explain it, thoughtfully, and you're very clear and concise of, hey, here's what we're trying to get done. Here are the certain qualities we're trying to train for this sport. Here's how we can get that done with the tools that we have available to us. And then also explain that, and this is something that a big reason why I like, a concurrent type model or conjugate style rotation in that system, is that it gives you a chance to have a lot of fluidity and a lot of leeway in what you do. Is that you're not necessarily stuck on, one, like you're coming in on a day and you've got to do like, 5x5 at like 80%, right? Well, say you get someone that's going to say it's like, track and field, they just came off, just a brutal week of practice during the off season. It's like, all right, cool, man. Well, we got to hit this 5x5 at 80, and they might, your athletes just might be completely blown up. Well, maybe instead of saying like, hey, we have to work up this and say that 80% that day is more like a 90 or a 92, 93, you're going to get 25 reps out of that total? Probably not, So I think with kind of how the way that, with how I train and with that system in general, I think the best part is it allows you to have a lot of freedom. You say if it's like a max effort day and you're working up to, hey, we're going to work up to the top triple, and then we're going to shut it down. And that top triple may not be, you may not break a PR. You may not even get over 90%. But, what we have to understand is that, when you look at that system in the weight room, and if it's for just strictly strength athletes, where you're a power lifter, you're strongman, you're a weightlifter, whatever, that's all you have to worry about. Stress is getting thrown at these kids from all different angles. And whether it's a weight room, it's a field, it's a classroom, whatever, stress is stress. And so I think if you have a system in place that can meet them where they're at on that particular day and still keep moving the needle in the right direction from a strength standpoint, then I think you're on to something really good. And so having with the coaches I've worked with, letting them know, hey, here's the ins and outs of the system I like to run, and here's why I think this is effective. And also being open to maybe some thoughts that they may have, because coming in, especially you're coming into a new spot, it's, hey, get some feedback from the coaches that are there, and what has been good, what do they think needs to be improved, at least on a strength conditioning standpoint. Because I know this field talks about, well, sport coaches this, sport coaches that, but at some point, with some of the best relationships I've built with sport coaches has simply come from, hey, what do you think? What are your thoughts? And now all of a sudden that wall gets shattered, and now you have a clear line of with the sport coaches that you work with, and getting their feedback, because that shows them, hey, he cares about, Coach White's going to care about what I think, and my opinion is valued. Now let's reciprocate that, and let's give that back to him. And so I think that goes a long way. But and I'll be honest, man, I've been lucky. I've been really lucky with the sport coaches I've worked with. I haven't had any issues. Had a good relationship with all of them, and for me, it's been a really good experience. And I don't know what everyone else's experience has been like, but for me, it's been a good one. But I think at the end of the day, as long as you kind of get across that we're all on the same team, we're trying to accomplish the same thing. Here's where my wheelhouse is at. Here's what I've been hired to do. Here's my system. Here's where I'm taking it. Here's where my thought process goes. And then I think once you take the time to do that, I think you'd be surprised at how well that will play into the strength coach's favor. I really do. But as far as that, no, I haven't had really, a whole lot of pushback. And just because I train in a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that all we're going to do is max effort, dynamic effort, rep effort. We're going to do all that, right? I mean, I've been exposed to several different systems, and that's shout out to Coach Decker and the staff at New Mexico State for helping me cut my teeth down there and give me some really good tools that I still use to this day. But yeah, I mean, whether it's you want to get into some APRE stuff, you want to go with a 4-day strength power, or 4-day upper lower, 4-day total, you want to get into some some 3-day undulating type stuff. I mean, it doesn't matter. If you understand what you're coaching and you understand what qualities that you're trying to attain, and you understand the sport you're working with, and you can explain it well to the kids and to the coaches, and you keep safety as the main priority, you can't go wrong. You absolutely cannot go wrong.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think you've had success, even if it is an attribution to the sport and sport coaches that you've worked with. It's been being open and opening that dialogue, and
absolutely
being very forthright with what you want to accomplish, and being knowledgeable with those things. And it makes their job a lot easier when you open the dialogue by asking them a question and valuing their opinion, and
Sure.
then that feedback, and then that understanding that you guys are both on the same team, that you have their athletes' best interests in mind. I think that definitely brings down the walls a lot more, and you're able to have an honest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be a lot of either very naive, or young sport coaches that are kind of in their first, right, or maybe they've been tainted from strength conditioning in the past, where they look right ahead and they're like, oh, you're not going to do that with my athletes, are you? It's like, it happens, but you hope that they're not going to always have that in the back of their head, and you can actually have a conversation with them more so and kind of break down those walls even more and more. So, hey, so kind of touching on like the communication between the sport coaches and everything, a little bit more so like into actually your like form of training. Like, do you feel like it is important that the athletes actually see you train? I know we talked a little bit more so of you going off site and everything. I know you're pretty active on social media too,
Mm-hmm.
but kind of that old practice at like practice what you preach sort of thing, like outside of just training too, is like maybe during the mentoring process or nutrition or any of those sort of things, like how important is athletes seeing that you are actually doing the things that you're telling them to do?
I think it's critical. It's absolutely huge. And surprisingly enough, that's gone a long way in building some rapport with the different, athletes I've had a chance to coach. Cause it's a lot of fun. You come in, you go in, you get after it one night, like a Tuesday, and then you come in for like a Wednesday lift. Like, oh, coach, man, that was a gnarly squat you put up the other night. I was like, yeah, it was, it was pretty heavy. And it's kind of like, hey man, so that gives them a chance to see that, they're being led and they're being coached by someone who's in it. They're in the thick of things with them as well. And so at the end of the day, it's one of those deals. I mean, you wouldn't want to go, you go get your teeth cleaned. You're not going to go to someone who has no idea how to clean teeth, right? You're going to go see a dentist. You're going to get that taken care of. If you've got an issue with your car and, right, man, I can't fix this, you're going to go see a mechanic, right? You're not going to go to some just random person on the street that has no idea what they're doing. So when it comes down to it, there's a lot of value in one, training hard yourself. And that doesn't have to be, bench, squat, deadlift, just super heavy and just crushing the gym. I mean, that could be one of those deals. Hey, yeah, we're going to lift. We're going to, get out and do some plyos. We're going to do some, some med ball work. We're going to do some sprint work on the field, like whatever the case is. If the kids that you coach and the athletes you coach understand and they can visually see you, whether it's, in person or through, a social media channel that you may have, that goes a long way in building a lot of rapport and some credibility, because because you're asking them, and it's like a negotiation of energy, right? You're asking them you need to direct some energy into this squat, this clean, this bench, this the chin, row, whatever. And it's kind of like, okay, well, if I put this amount of energy into this, what am I getting back? And so you have a chance to explain, here's what you're getting back, because I've been there. I've seen that return on the investment. It's worth it. And again, I think it as I said it before, but it just goes a long way to building some credibility, and it gives you really a chance to build a relationship and build some rapport, with the athletes that you coach. Because if you do that, and it shows a level of transparency too, and that makes leading and coaching that much easier. It makes it so easy, at least in my opinion. That's been a good tool that I've used, whether it be Twitter or Instagram. I'm more active on Instagram. That's where I post a lot of stuff at. And I think with social media in general, I think for the strength coach, it's a fantastic tool if you know the right way to use it. And that's how I feel about that.
That's a great point. I want to get into that a little bit, like your mental approach and everything, because
Yeah.
I think that's fascinating too. Because like you said, hard training, and it's different for everybody. You don't necessarily need to just do squat, bench, deadlift and be a competitive power lifter. But I think like saying hard training is very different than saying like working out or exercising or active. I think those things are great, but there's definitely a difference between those and actually having a plan in place, like planning
Mm-hmm.
your day around when you're going to train, like
Mm-hmm.
having preparation, warming up, periodization, maybe you're peaking for something. I think
Yeah.
that definitely is a lot different. Would you add anything else to that, like as your definition of hard training versus like working out as a strength coach?
I think it's funny because I've had this conversation before where everyone's like, well, you shouldn't say working out, you should say training, you should say whatever. And to me, it's whatever you call it. I don't think you really need to put a label on it. But here's the deal: like, you're gonna know when you train hard, you'll know it. You will absolutely know it. And as far as the mental approach to it, it's one of those things, right? And we're all connected by strength, and we're connected by the barbell, to some degree, right? And there's a reason why we all got up in the strength and conditioning field and decided to make this the career path, that we chose to pursue. But for me, it was, the weight room was a way where I could find some consistency. I could find consistency every single day when I was in high school, my early 20s, mid 20s, up until I left to go to Mississippi State as an intern. And the weight room was a spot where I was able to learn a lot about life, and I was able to kind of get kind of purge some things out that I was going through, and when I was younger, that we all try to find our way in life, and when a lot of things were really all over the place and inconsistent, the weight room was that one consistent thing that I had going. And so to me, I kind of wrap that thought up is I understand the value that it's given my life. And like I said earlier, but I've been able to shape my life around my passion for strength, my pursuit of it, and everything good about what's going on right now for me has been a direct result of finding something that I'm really passionate about, and something that is incredibly important to me, and something that's helped me through a lot of really rough patches. And just to kind of dive head first into it and say, I don't know where this is going to take me, but it's going to take me somewhere. And it's taken me some really cool places. It's given me a chance to meet a lot of really cool people, and have some unique life experiences. But as far as the mental approach, I kind of go up in there every day and knowing and there are some days I'm like, dude, I do not want to do this at all. A heavy bar does not sound good, but understand I'd rather be sitting here, trying to talk myself into doing this, as opposed to not finding that in my life, at all. Because if I didn't have that, I have no idea where I'd be at right now. I have zero clue. And it's almost a scary thought. And so for me, I understand the value and the importance and what joy and happiness that brings to my life. And so to me, that's an easy decision. Let's roll and let's get it. And then that's usually the mental approach that I take every day. But as far as, working out and hard training, you'll hear people talk all the time, well, we're training hard. Like, are you really? It looks like you live your life in the weight room at a 5 or a 6. You have no clue what a 10 is, dog. And you can't know what that feels like if you don't go there a time or two. And so, and when you get there, you'll know it. You'll know it. And we've all been burned a little bit. We've flown pretty close to the sun, and we've got burned a time or two. But I think sometimes just as a coach, you almost have to do that, right? Because then it's, you're in the weight room, you get the guys that are all, juiced up and like, yeah, let's go, let's throw 600 pounds on there. It's like, wait a minute, man, like 520 was a little bit of a grinder. I don't know if you want to make an 80-pound jump, so, but as far as, whether it's working out, hard training, whatever you want to call it, that's fine. But at the end of the day, when you've hit a couple hard ones and you're around the people, if you're around people that know what it's like, they'll show you. And I think, again, what we were talking about earlier, man, I think that's, one of the benefits about going to a place offsite, and being around people that do this at a very high level. They'll show you what it's like.
No doubt. Yeah. That wisdom and insight that comes from cranking it up to 10 and knowing what it feels like to lay it out all on the floor. I try to put some of those big suffering ones into my training every once in a while. If I'm not actually peaking for a competition or something coming up, I try to find places where I can put something that really makes me uncomfortable. Right now it's trying to run again, which is sometimes terrible, or trying to condition, especially in the Fresno heat, trying to condition and push the prowler. It's not my favorite thing to do.
I bet that's rough.
Oh yeah. It feels like a fire inside your throat. It's awful. No, but that is a kind of a rite of passage, just the same as it is for coaches to kind of go through an internship. And I know maybe one day the career will change and shift and talk about intern pay and how it's working and credentials and all that shit. But it's very important to kind of get your feet wet that way and be indoctrinated to it and see if you really want to do it. And that's the same with training. If you just live your life right in the middle at a 5 and you never know what it feels like to really crank it up, then you don't have that insight when you try to ask an athlete to put max effort into a squat or run as full effort as you can in a 40, whatever it ends up being. You have to be able to say that from a place of experience, or at least maybe if it's not exactly the same, it needs to be relative to you. Cause I know
Sure.
I can't throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Not a chance. I've told the guys some horror stories of me trying to actually get the gun out and see what my arm does. And they know better. It's not happening.
Man.
But like for me, it's very relative how you can actually see it. And it definitely builds a lot of buy-in with them. So
Sure.
like with the actual mental approach, when you're sitting there talking to athletes, you're not going to find athletes. They're probably not going to get the same passion out of the weight room that we have. Obviously, we chose a career in this profession because, like you said, we were shaped by the bar and like we found some joy and some purpose behind it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not every single player is going to have that same feeling. Some of them are just going to have a complete disdain for it.
Yeah.
How do you kind of like approach those athletes? And at least what's the ultimate goal with them? Are you trying to get them to just be compliant and accepting of that this is part of the game? Or are you kind of free floating with them? Or are you really trying to get them to find some sort of passion within it? If it's just, I don't know, kettlebell training or something that they like. What's your approach?
My biggest approach, I'm trying to engage the athletes I'm with, because you're exactly right. You're not going to get, you'll get those guys that are in the weight room, and it's across all sports, man. It could be, men's sports, women's sports. Some of the gnarliest athletes I've had in the weight room have been on the women's teams, and they just love to get after it. But I understand, and I think that's something you have to keep in mind as a coach is that, like our guys over at Boise State, they did not, earn a scholarship to come lift weights at Boise State University and just play football on the side, right? These guys are elite at what they do. Doesn't mean that, just because you're an elite football player, doesn't mean that you're going to be elite in the weight room. And so with the ones that, are like, hey, this is just part of it, this is what we have to do, or some that just absolutely hate the weight room in general, you as a coach, you have to find ways to engage them. Because it's probably been someone's kind of messing up on a squat. It's probably just been, you just got to get lower. That's all you have to do. Is that engaging? Or how about, hey, someone a guy missed a rep. It's or hey, that wasn't up to standard, didn't look real good. Instead of me like getting on him and raising your voice and kind of being a little more of a hammer. It's like, hey man, like what happened? Talk to them, ask questions. They'll give you feedback. But if you find a way to engage the athletes that you're working with, and especially the ones that aren't so fond of the weight room, I think you'd be surprised. A lot of coaches would be surprised at how effective that really is. So yeah, my biggest goal is I'm trying to engage, the athletes that I'm around and get them to a point where, take lifting out of the equation. I'm trying to get to a point where that room is a place that they enjoy being in, and that we're a staff that they enjoy being around. And I'm a coach and a person that they enjoy being around and someone that they can trust. And so I think if you find a way to engage your players, engage your athletes, and talk to them, and again, make the weight room a place that they enjoy being, you'll start to see the shift in their demeanor and their mindset and their body language when it's time to ask them, hey, we got to squat, we got to clean, we got to do all these things. Like, this is what we need to do here. These are the tools that we have available to us, but it's a place they enjoy being and they enjoy being around you. You'd be surprised at how effective that really can be. And that's my ultimate goal, while I'm in there, because at the end of the day, I know, and again, I just talked about it a minute ago, the weight room is a very special place to me, and not just the one at Boise State. Every weight room in America is a special place, whether it's on a campus, it's a private facility, whatever. They're all special because they all can provide a lot of value to everyone's lives. And so if you're able to kind of shift the mindset of, oh, this is just something we have to do, lifting weights is stupid to, no, this is something that could be valuable. And this is something that can help me as, through my, 3 or 4 years, in college. And this is something that can add, value to my life and add quality to my life, after the playing days are done, then you've done your job.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, like by actually finding a way to like shift their mindset a little bit and maybe understand, if you know them at a personal level and their goals, someone that's maybe not as invested into the weight room, but like what level they want to go to next. And
absolutely.
You can meet them where they at and kind of show them that this actually has a lot more value toward, okay, I want to be a real estate broker. It's like, okay, well now you learn time management, you learn how to put in effort, how to show up. There's a lot of intangibles that kind of go into the weight room that doesn't have to just be always inherently physical, that I think
Yep.
a lot of them maybe just don't realize that they're creating those habits on a daily basis by coming in, showing up, doing the work, following like your guys' lead and everything, so that
Mhm.
when they are done with their playing career, they have those things kind of now
Yep.
built in, and hopefully they're
Yep.
healthy habits that they could take forward with whatever they choose to do after that.
No question.
No, but I really like you. You stole a lot of my recruiting pitch when I got players come in, because I think that's a lot of what happens, especially when you get some scrawny freshmen that come in
Yeah.
and just have no idea what a weight room is. They're allergic to iron at that point, and
Yeah.
like dads are trying to push them towards lifting more, and like moms are just like kind of scared of them going away to college, and you're just the bearded meatball in front of them, like telling them like, hey, this is what we're going to do,
Yep.
but tying it back to the sport, tying it back to their goals, and showing that there are things that you can actually develop in here that go beyond just the sport and beyond just the weight room. I think those are huge.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Hey, so I know you're specifically now in your current role, you're specifically working with football.
Hmm.
Um, can you kind of speak a little bit on the importance of working with a lot of other sports, like leading up to your current position? Like you talked about it with some of your female athletes being some of the
Hmm.
toughest ones you've ever worked with, and you've cut your teeth working with many different kind of Olympic sports. Like, how are
Yeah.
you able to take some of those experiences and maybe some of those different nuances of the culture and expectations of those teams to now work with one team where you can kind of be more hands-on with day-to-day operations of everything?
So I think the biggest thing, and to me, I think with having the the opportunity to coach Olympic sports, especially the women's sports, my cueing and verbally communicate my verbal communication and how I want things done. With the women's sports, that was a whole new challenge to me. And because with the men's sports, you can roll around and it's kind of like, hey, your upper back's loose, and like you take, touch the upper back, and it's kind of okay, cool. But with if you're a male coach and you've got women's teams, probably not the best thing to do. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, coaching those teams, I had to learn how to be an elite communicator with what I want done. And so from that standpoint, you'll be able to build those communication skills. To me, I thought was huge. It was a big help to me because now whenever I went back to like baseball, football, gosh, what else? Men's basketball. Like almost thinking, what sport did I not work with? I was down in New Mexico State and a couple other places. It makes that a lot easier. So one, I think that helped with communication. Two, I think that really, with the Olympic sports, I think that was a way for me to kind of work on engaging the kids a lot more. Because again, you go to a lot of the schools I've been to. Every school I've been, I've worked football, and you've had somewhere it's been okay. You're working track, you're working cross country, you're working baseball, softball, whatever, right? And especially when you look at like cross country, maybe like a tennis, swim and dive, maybe not necessarily the athletes that will take to the weight room as much as say like a football, a baseball, like a soccer, whatever the case is. So and again, we talked about earlier, if you can find a way to get those kids engaged and get them feeling good about being there and show them that you care, I think that provides a lot of growth for you as a coach, a lot of value, for your professional, you as a strength and conditioning professional, but it adds value to the athlete's experience, as a college athlete. It adds to that collegiate experience, and how many times have we heard kind of through the grapevine where oh, this isn't I had an okay 4 years, I had a like lackluster 4 years. It's no, do what you can with the role that you're placed in to add value to their experience, because they're the ones that matter. They're the most important thing in your life at that moment in time when you're around them and you're leading a group, whatever the case is. That is the most important thing going on in your life. So now I think too, with the Olympic sports, not only from we talk about engaging and making them feel valued and whatnot, but I think too from a program standpoint, that gives you an opportunity within reason to try a few things. If you're like, hey, I don't really know how to, like with me when I was in Indiana State and I had women's soccer. I mean, that was my first go around with a conjugate style system, and I picked Brandon Smitley's brain quite a bit with a guy that owned the gym I trained at over at Thirst. And I was like, hey man, if you were going to put this within a team setting, how would you do it? And so that gave me an opportunity to kind of put some things in play with our women's soccer program. And that gave me a chance to see, here's what works really well. Here's what I didn't think worked well. And here's how I'd make those changes. And I kind of talked about that in an article I put up on Elite FTS a couple years ago. But yeah, it's more so, what do you like about a certain system? What did you like? What did you think was not as effective, and how did you go about changing that? So now once you start making those moves in your career, and you go from, like a part-time to a grad assistant to now all of a sudden you're working full time, and, those windows of opportunities to kind of iron a few things out, are gone. What are you going to do whenever it's time and the chair is calling, and so that gives you an opportunity to kind of sharpen your craft and your skill set as a coach, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I really like that article that you wrote, because one, in it, and for those, I'll link everything in there so guys can find it, because I thought it was really well put together, because I've run conjugate style with my athletes before, but I think the coolest part about it is that you put not only like the ideal program that you wanted in there, but you put what actually happened. Like you put the realistic side on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people that end up looking at programs and saying, hey, I do 5-3-1, I do juggernaut, I do that, what so-and-so, whatever it is. Yeah. But if you're doing it on yourself, it's completely different as a coach.
Oh, yeah.
If you're giving it to an athlete, because like you said, all these college athletes are getting thrown stress at them, like left and right. We're talking about exam week, like vacation time, all these different things that are just thrown at them, like socially, personally, schoolwork, whatever it is, like even, sport practice. And what we try to put on them is stress. So it was cool to see that, hey, this was my goal. This is what I wanted to accomplish. This is what actually happened.
Yeah.
And to see the difference between the two and how you can kind of prepare it. Like when you're actually going through with football now, I know you guys work together as a team with the rest of the coaching staff. How much more control and how much more is like your realistic program now to like your ideal program? Since you start getting to the point where you're more involved with the staff, you have a more say with what's going on, does that gap start to close a little bit? Or is there still always going to be like an ideal, almost robotic, perfect world thing, and then a trailing gap between what actually occurs?
Well, I think especially when you look at, college athletics, we operate on a very limited amount of time, right? And there's going to be a lot of, like, you have to get a lot of stuff done in a very short amount of time. So, is anything ever going to be perfect in our line of work? Absolutely not. But I think you can get as close to it as you possibly can. And so, from, looking from back then to now, that gap has closed substantially, and even with, then the only reason that gap existed in the first place was because I was new to all this. And so as I've gone through different stops and worked with different teams and even through my own training, found what, hey, this is good for this setting. This is effective. This is time efficient, wherever the case may be. That learning how to kind of navigate those waters and get better at utilizing a certain system within a certain environment. To me, that's been where that gap has been, and it's closed substantially. But again, too, when you look at the sport of football, it's, if all you had to do is just, throw a rack and a bar and some plates out there and see who can bench squat clean the most, and we're just going to play for fun. Then our role would be much more important. But as far as that goes, I think, and again, I talked about earlier too, if you understand the principles, you understand the qualities that you're trying to train, that allows for a lot of fluidity and a lot of movement and a lot of, hey, be able to adjust on the fly, as a lot of coaches like to say. That gives you the freedom and gives you the room to be able to do that. So that's kind of where it stands now. And again, I don't think it's ever going to get to a perfect program. If someone's got the perfect program, let me know, because you can have it all, laid out in your cool little Excel sheet. And it's like, yeah, we're going to get this done, get that done. It's like, we're going to hit this max effort lower day. well, we don't have an hour and a half to work up, or an hour and 10 minutes, hour 5, whatever, to work up, to warm up and work up to a top single, and so it's like, okay, we have to make this time, still, train a certain quality, but it has to be time efficient. And so I think where that gap has been getting closed the last several years, and will continue to close, the whole time of coaching, we get to the point where you understand what quality you're trying to train, but you also understand within the environment and the setting you find yourself in, what's the most time efficient way to train this quality that we're after on this particular day. And so I think that's where that's where it'll hopefully where it will go, as my career continues.
I like that. Yeah, that's a great point. I think you get a lot better too as you go through it, and you start realizing and anticipating the things that are going to happen beforehand. So your ideal goal is already almost more towards the realistic one, like you said. So kind of with your own training, one thing I wanted to ask, since I kind of find myself doing this, like competing in different sports myself, for yours, like I like to test things out with my athletes. I want to test some of the stuff on myself. So I find sometimes like my strongman or Highland games suffers a little bit, maybe trying to be like an overall athlete. Do you incorporate, since you're not really competing, but you're training super heavy, you're doing a lot of stuff within your own specific like lifting that is geared towards powerlifting. Do you incorporate other things like athletic movement, positioning, or stuff that you're actually going to have your players perform on the field? Do you try some of those things out within your program, or kind of tinker with them at all?
Yes and no. I mean, I'll tinker a little bit with it just to make sure that, okay, I can demo this if I absolutely have to, because you don't want to get caught out trying to demo something and you completely screw it up. You know what I mean? That's not good. So, if it's field stuff, then I'll, I'll go out and kind of mess around with it, make sure that, I can at least, I can demonstrate it, I can coach it. I can kind of fix guys and get them in the position that they need to get in. So, in that sense, do I tinker with it? Yes. But I think after a while, I mean, when you look at how long a lot of coaches have been around, sports, the weight room, training, a lot of those skills aren't going to go away. A lot of those skills are going to be with us for a long, long time. There will be some residual effects from that, but as far as, being able to jump, being able to throw a med ball, etc., I feel like I can do that just fine, if I absolutely needed to. But the biggest reason too is, with the style of training I'm doing now, I found out that, because I kind of stumbled on this when I kind of got to a little bit of a roadblock where I was doing a lot of the traditional linear stuff, was kind of doing some block models and things like that, and my body just hurt. I wasn't making progress. I was just feeling kind of sluggish, and training just wasn't that enjoyable anymore. I was still doing it just because that's what I love to do, but it wasn't enjoyable. And so when it got down to it, I started training the way I'm doing now. I'm like, okay, I'm getting stronger. I'm starting to drop a little body fat. I'm feeling really good. This is the best I felt in a long time. So like, look, if it ain't broke, I'm not fixing it. And so I just stuck with it. And again, if it's one of those deals where we've got to demo some stuff on the field, or, I haven't done an Olympic lift in training in probably going 3 years now. But if I had to demo a clean, I can get down and I can still get in the front rack pretty well. So again, I just think that's a skill that, those are skills that don't leave, after a long, long, long time. So as long as I'm able to demonstrate and, and coach and, get guys in certain positions and know what I'm talking about, whether it's in the weight room or on the field, then to me, okay, yeah, that's good. But, it's sufficient. But, even to like some of the, the stuff I'll do in the weight room with the guys, I will try that as far as like doing some single leg movements, doing some direct hamstring work, whether it be, we're going to do some 3-position chins and try to get some, some vertical pulling volume, whatever it is, certain things that I'll have some of my teams do, and now too, whenever, over here at Boise State, whenever we're talking like, hey, we're thinking about doing, this, and this, yeah, those are things I'll go ahead and add into my training. That way I can get a feel, because if you don't have a feel for it and you don't know what's going on, if you haven't done it, how can you coach it? And how can you get a sense of what they could be feeling whenever they're in the midst of training?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's a great point too. Like some of those skills really don't go away after you've been in it for a while, but you better have those things easily accessible when asked to do them, because that's the worst thing you can do, especially for young coaches. If you can't demo something, I'm sorry, I can't pull you back out of that hole. The athletes have already got their impression of you.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
I've seen it. I've seen it on the positive, and I've seen it on the negative spectrum, and those things stick with them. So
Yep.
your next six or 12 months, you're now the can't demo guy, or you're the I can trust you guy. So
Yep. No question.
that's awesome, man. That's good to hear. I've always been interested with those things because coaches that actually like get down in the trenches and are training to figure out like the best ways to actually train yourself, do exactly what you want to do in training,
Yeah.
but still be able to kind of add a little bit of the new things that you want to implement with your athletes. Like I don't want to do two different programs. I want to be able to try to integrate them together. So
Yep.
I like
Absolutely.
that. Hey, so we end the show like any good training session with a finisher. So I got
Yeah.
4 quarters for you, four
Okay.
questions, and then overtime. So
Okay.
you can take as long as you want, or you can go back rapid fire and we can get through them quick. So you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So first one I got for you: biggest influence in strength and conditioning, and biggest influence in powerlifting.
Oh man, biggest influence in powerlifting, my man Brandon Smitley. Biggest one. I spent a lot of time with him. He's an awesome guy. He's an excellent resource, man. He's been the biggest one. Biggest influence in strength and conditioning. Man, that's a hard one because I feel like I've had an opportunity to be around some excellent coaches in this field. So, the big mentors, Coach Savage at the University of Florida, Coach Decker over at New Mexico State, Coach Hakeem Robinson, he's down at Auburn University, Coach Derek Leger, he's at UT Tyler, he's a director there. Trying to think. And yeah, my boss now, Reed Kagi, awesome guy, a lot of fun to work with, and gave me an opportunity to get out here. My boss at San Jose State, Gary Rebe, was awesome guy. He gave me my first full time job, and Coach Dave McManus over at Indiana State had a really good grad assistantship with him, and was really glad he gave me an opportunity to come back to the home state and continue my career. So. As far as people in the field, man, I've been really blessed. And Coach Nate Peoples, that was the guy I was directly under at Mississippi State when I was an intern there, and learned a lot, got a lot of love for Coach Peoples. Yeah, I mean, I've had a really good opportunity to be under some awesome coaches, and I'm always thankful that they gave so much of themselves, so that I've got I have the opportunities, and I'm where I'm at in my career now because of them. So I'm always thankful for those guys.
Yeah, it's never really just one person at all. So that's
No,
cool here.
It's a group, man.
Hey, so I know you're in a new town. You've been there not a full year yet, not even 6 months really yet. So
Yeah.
What can you be found doing when you're not coaching or training? What are some of your go-to hobbies?
Cooking. Absolutely love to cook. I mean, it took me and my girlfriend long enough to get a grill because I was doing a lot of cooking on the cast iron in the kitchen. We've got a decent sized apartment, but it was starting to, we cooked for a night and it would just smoldering around for a couple of days. And so she was pretty excited when we finally pulled the trigger and got a grill. So that way we'll keep all that smoke and all that stuff outside. But no, man, love to cook. I like to write too. I mean, it's anytime I have an opportunity to try to, put some content out and give back to the field that way, I'll do that too. Big coffee guy. I absolutely love coffee. And love getting out to go hike too. I mean, we had a little bit of time over spring break. We went out to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and that was one of the cooler spots I've been. We went up through Grand Teton National Park, and we had a really good time. But anything outdoors, man, love to cook, love to get outside, love to drink some coffee, and love to try to give back to the field whenever I can. But yeah, that's you can find me doing.
I like it. Hey, so you kind of alluded to this one in the beginning, not giving much thought to it, but if you weren't coaching in strength conditioning, what would you be doing? And if you could pick a sport other than powerlifting, how do you think you'd be training?
If I could do something other than coaching, if that wasn't a thing, I'd probably cook for a living. I'd probably get into food. It's because it's fun. I mean, I think you look at coaching and you have an opportunity, to create something really cool, and you get a chance to create a plan and create something you think is going to be beneficial for a group of people. And with food, it's kind of the same deal. There's a very creative aspect to the kitchen, and so that's one reason why I really enjoy cooking. And If you're talking about, like, if I wasn't competing in powerlifting, what else would I compete in?
Yeah, what sport would you pick?
Oh man, I'm not very good at it, but golf for sure, man. I enjoy golfing. I really do. I'm terrible at it, like absolutely awful. But I have a good time. I have a good time getting out there and getting my hacks in. So it's a
All
good
right.
time.
Hey, so you might not have had control of the volume and the music at maybe Thirst or Boss. So if it's your ideal training day, what's your go-to PR song or music? And
Ooh.
what's Chef White's go-to post-training meal?
Well, the post-training meal is easy, man. I'll go throw some New York strips on the on the grill or some fillets and fire it up, crank it out. But so we actually over at Thirst and Boss, we actually did have control. And anytime we wanted to throw some music on, we get ready to light one up, man. We would, we get on there and throw some stuff on. But oh man, that's a good question, because there's a lot. I'm a rocker, dude. I can get down with rap. I can get down with some house stuff, but it comes down to it, man. I am a rocker at heart. So probably one that kind of makes my hair stand up a little bit is "Am I Evil" by Metallica. And you get that thing when it's about 5 minutes in, and they get big guitar solos towards the middle, man. That thing is just, you can feel it in your bones, dude. It is awesome.
There we go. Hey, so last one I got for you. Favorite under the bar or favorite coaching memory?
Oh man, make me choose between both. Favorite under the bar. I don't know if this is necessarily my favorite one, but it was one that I'll remember this moment under the bar, because I've got really the favorite coaching memory was whenever we went. I was at New Mexico State. And we won the Arizona Bowl in 2017, and we snapped the nation's longest bowl drought. That was awesome. I was so excited for those guys, and they had just been grinding away for that senior class for 4 years. And what an awesome experience, and have it be blessed to be able to share with that experience with them. But favorite training moment, this is so funny. So when I first got to San Jose, before I realized how close Boss Barbell was, I would go up super training over at Mark Bell's spot on Saturdays. I drive up to West Sacramento, and that's where I do my max effort lower stuff, because they had monoliths, they had a bunch of different bars, and that was really cool experience too. I got a chance to meet some really awesome people, when I would go up to super training and get after it. But so I'd gone up this particular day, and I had the goal of hitting a 700 pounds squat at super training. I'm like, man, that would be really sick. And you've been hitting some really big PRs the last couple of weeks on some different bars, and thinking, okay, this is probably the last weekend I can get up to Sacramento to do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it, and I'm going to see I'm going to get what I get, and we'll roll with it. Because the best I'd done with just briefs and reps was like 660, I think. And I had gotten 7 on my back, but I cut it a little high, and I was like, I can take that to the deck, and I can go get it. So get super training, and all I'm thinking about on the drive up is 700. Like, we're going to brief up, we're going to wrap up, we're going to take 7 for a ride, and we're going to shut it down. Like, it's going to be a really good way to end off the summer. And I had met Chris Bell a couple times. I'd been there, and but I hadn't met Mark yet. And he had been there a couple times, and he was always talking to people. And I'm like, man, I'm not going to go up there and butt in on the conversation. I'll meet him at some point. Well, I took 600, and it moved really well. And I was kind of, okay, I'm gonna chill, grab a drink of water, and we're gonna go 650 next. And I look outside my corner of my eye, and Mark's standing there. He's in the front room of the store's at. And I'm like, man, I want to run up there and just introduce myself real quick. And so I did. And Mark Bell was awesome, man. He was super cool, really nice to talk to. And he's just like, yeah, I've seen you up here a couple times. You've been getting after it. You had some good training sessions. I'm like, yeah, I appreciate it. And I had 650 loaded, and we talked for a few minutes, and he was like, this you now? I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go take this. And so, went out there, 650, absolutely hammered it. And I was like, all right, 700, throw it on. And man, I tell you, I put 7 on, and I rode that thing to the rails. And it got to the point where, and I can usually grind. I'm not the fastest lifter in the world, but I feel like I can grind out some heavy bars pretty well. I don't mind sitting under there for a little bit. And Mark Bell watching, I grinded until I couldn't grind anymore, and I missed a 700-pound squat at super training. But I know he was out. He had his phone out. I'm like, oh, this is going to be so awesome, and I ended up missing it. But what a day, what an experience. And, we chopped up for a little bit, and he was like, man, that was gnarly. That was a really good attempt. And I thought I had too, man. I took that thing to the deck, and it was kind of like, this thing is moving, and just didn't have enough gas in the tank that day. But overall, that's I don't know if that's necessarily my favorite, but that's one that I will never forget, was how cool that day was. Even though I didn't get what I came for. I was like, hey, load it up. If I miss it, I miss it. That's the worst that could happen. And you had a chance to meet Mark Bell, someone who's has a major influence within the strength game. That was a really cool day, really cool, and something that I won't forget for a long time.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. That you probably cranked that one up to 11 that day. That's for sure one you got earned.
The music was so loud, man. I couldn't hear myself think. And the best part was, like, they've got a couple monoliths, but they've got the sound system that's probably the height of the ceiling of the room I'm in right now. And I mean, it will blow your face off with how powerful it is. And I was like, hey man, throw some Slipknot on there. Let's crank this sucker up. And it was just that environment was just, oh my goodness, that environment was just outstanding that day. It was so cool.
Yeah, that atmosphere, like you said, the camaraderie, the culture, everything that's created in those places, like there's a reason why, like, West Side is West Side. It's not the same. Conjugate is different than West Side, and Super Training, like those big places. There's a reason. It's the people in there. It's that atmosphere. That's definitely a cool story for sure.
No question.
I appreciate you sharing it, man. Hey,
Absolutely.
So for people that want to kind of see those articles you got going on, follow you a little bit more, where can they find you and kind of get in touch with you if they got any more questions?
Man, I'm always down to chop it up. Anyone that wants to reach out anytime. I'm big on Instagram, at strength_coach_white. I'm also on Twitter. I've gotten a little more active there too, within the last couple months. My handle is at @SCCoachWhite. And my email is lucaswhite61@boisestate.edu. And if anyone ever wants to text me, call me, whatever, and really get in touch, my phone number is 812-305-1086. I'm always down to chop up by training, or help anyone that's trying to navigate their way through the field, as much as I can, because I think that's something you do, is you make your way through the field, and you become a resource for people that are for young coaches that are getting in, or just people that are new to the field in general, and are trying to navigate the waters. So if you're established somewhere, and you've been through certain aspects of the field, and you've made certain steps, and you have an opportunity to help someone else navigate and have success in the field, I think you should. And so that's why I'm always open to anyone reaching out anytime. Text me, call me, email, hit me up on the socials, wherever. And then too, if there's I've got the link to my article on Elite FTS. It's on my Instagram page. I've got a link to all the content and stuff that I put out too. It's on a link tree. So if anyone wants to check any of that out, fire away, give it a shot.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I could test that phone number's for real. That's how we got linked up too. And I'll definitely link all the articles and everything you got going on. So cool. You're a great resource. And unfortunately didn't get in touch with you when you were still in the valley. It's a little more of a hike now to get to the mountain area, but I'm happy for you out there, and I know you guys are going to do big things. And like I said, I appreciate you. I was excited to have you on today. So I can't thank you enough for coming on, man.
Well, I'll tell you, anytime someone wants to talk to me and get me on a podcast or just kind of pick my brain, I'm always humbled, man. It's always a good opportunity to get on and and chop it up and again try to add some value to the field and get and shine the strength and conditioning profession in a good positive light, because we've got good people in this field, man. We've got really good men and really good women in this field that can have a major impact. So if there's anything that I can do, to help kind of, move that in a positive direction, I'm all for it. So I'm really appreciate you having me on. And this has been a really fun conversation. So thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Yeah, it was great to have you on and try to give back as much as we can to the profession. So I appreciate it, man. Hope you enjoy your vacation before summer ball starts coming back on you.
Yep, absolutely. We will enjoy. We kick back up June 1st, so a little time, and we're back too. I'm excited to get back and see the guys for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, take care. Thanks again.
Appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors, Cerberus Strength. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.